Kunja Radha Madhava Kunja Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Yamuna Hatira Vanachamati Yamuna Tira Vanachamati Yamuna Tira Vanachamati Yamuna Tira Vanachamati Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Radha Madhava Kunja Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Pijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodan Brajajana Jan Yashod Nandana Jajan Jan Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Shri Radhe. Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Shri Radhe. Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada. Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Diraya Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome to this Wednesday morning of October 25th. And we are concluding chapter 13, further talks between Maharaj Rahugana and Jad Bharat. Canto 5, the creative impetus. This is the last verse of this chapter. So it's 5:13:26. Today is a very auspicious day. It is let's see, it's multiple disappearance days. It's the disappearance day of Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, Srila Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. So we'll try to speak on how today's verse um, applies to these great saints in our disciplic succession. Rajovacha Yohava iha bahuvidha maha Bhagavata vaya vihita parokshena Vachasa jiva loka pavadhva sahyarya manishaya kalpita vishayo Nanjasa vyutpanna loka samadhigama tatat evaita Duravagamam samavetanu kalpena nirdishtam iti. Raja Uvacha, King Parikshit said, Yaha, which, ha, certainly, va, or, Yaha, in this narration, Bahu Vidha, who are aware of many incidents of transcendental knowledge, Maha Bhagavata, O great devotee sage, Svaya, by you, Abhi Hitaha, described, Parokshena, figuratively, Vachasa, by words, Jiva, Loka, Bhava, Adhva, the path of material existence, the conditioned soul. Saha, that he indeed, Arya, Manishaya, are the intelligence of advanced devotees. Kalpita, Vishaya, Kalpita Vishayaha, the subject matter is imagined. Na, not. Anjasa, directly. Vyutpannaloka, of persons who are not very experienced or intelligent. Samadhigamaha, complete understanding. Ata, therefore, that eva, because of that, etat, this matter. Duravagamam, which is difficult to understand. Samaveta anukalpena, by substituting the direct meaning of such incidents. Nirdishyatam, let it be described. Iti, thus. Translation. King Parikshit then told Shukadev Goswami, My dear Lord, O great devotee sage, you are omniscient. You have very nicely described the position of the conditioned soul, who is compared to a merchant in the forest. From these instructions, intelligent men can understand that the senses of a person in the bodily conception are like roads and thieves in that forest, and one's wife and children are like jackals and other ferocious animals. However, it is not very easy for the unintelligent to understand the purport of the story because it is difficult to extricate the exact meaning from the allegory. I therefore request Your Holiness to give the direct meaning. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. There are many stories and incidents in Srimad Bhagavatam that are described figuratively. Such allegorical descriptions may not be understood by unintelligent men. Therefore, it is the duty of the student to approach a bona fide spiritual master for the direct explanation. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto, 13th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Further Talks Between King Rahugana and Jad Bharat. Hare Krishna. Okay. So we have a very esteemed guest in our midst, His Holiness Krishna Kshetra Maharaj, who just came in. Maharaj, I don't know if you would like to speak. Oh my goodness. This is like, uh, I hope I don't get my head chopped off like O Maharshana Sutta in not showing you due respect. Yeah, I'll get you. Oh, it's in that door. Okay. So Maharaj is very me and said that I should presentation. Okay, so we see in this purport Prabhupada is mentioning that so here King Parikshit Maharaj is asking for a direct explanation of an allegory. So and Prabhupada in the purport is highlighting that uh, there's a need, there's always a need for a direct explanation because of the nature of intelligence and how the three modes of material nature affect the intelligence and how the built-in defects in the body, soul inhabiting a human body, there are built-in defects. And because of these defects, there is always a need for a direct explanation. As some of you may know, hermeneutics is a branch of philosophy that deals with how to interpret scriptures, how to interpret the words of God, the words of his devotees and great saints. So great teachers and acharyas use different devices to actually explain Sri Krishna's words and those of his devotees, to explain their various pastimes and their examples, their personal examples of them trying to teach and focus the intelligence of the conditioned soul on the true. So, so what is intelligence? So this is answered by Lord Kapila, third canto, 26th chapter, text 30. So he says, Shangshayota viparyaso nishchaya smritir evacha lakshanam vritita pritak. Translation. Doubt, misapprehension, correct apprehension, memory, and sleep, as determined by their different functions, are said to be the distinct characteristics of intelligence. So, in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada um, cites the human body. One is to cheat others, to cheat, to make an error. Um, forget the others, other defects. If anyone remembers the four defects, you can say, I forget. Incorrect senses and senses and so it's to cheat, imperfect senses, to make mistakes, and okay, I forget the fourth one. To be an illusion, yes, there we go. So to be an illusion, to make mistakes, to cheat, and to have perfect senses. So we can see here that Lord Kapila by citing, saying that everybody has experienced misapprehension from these four defects, whether it be you see water on the road as you're traveling on a hot day. Um, that's due to yeah, imperfect senses. Interactions between devotees. Sometimes the devotee may say something and you may misinterpret for saying something. Um, there's a pastime of a Rupa Goswami sitting in samadhi, and there was a devotee who was yeah, he was lame, but crippled. And so Rupa Goswami was actually smiling while in samadhi, relishing the pleasure of Manasa Seva. But unfortunately, the devotee took that smiling to be that Rupa Goswami is making fun, uh, is making fun of his physical condition. But however, that was not the case. So this happens from time to time in all our experience. In the purport, I'll read the purport. It's a good purport. Purport is, doubt is one of the important functions of intelligence. Blind acceptance of something does not give evidence of intelligence. Therefore, the word shangshaya is very important. In order to cultivate intelligence, one should be doubtful in the beginning. But doubting is not very favorable when information is received from the proper source. Is that doubting the words of the authority is the cause of destruction. So this is the double-edged blade, I guess, of this function of intelligence, is that it can cause you to focus. Uh, so by presenting the Bhagavad Gita as it is, for example, and him saying that there's 600 versions of Bhagavad Gita on the doubt, doubting which version is the correct one. That's good. But then once you have Bhagavad Gita as it is, and Prabhupada is speaking very, uh, very certain, he's very certain in his descriptions of the absolute truth, which, are a bit vague, and there's uh, speculative uh, words that are being used. It may be perhaps um, they're not really giving direct, excuse me, they're not really giving direct explanation of Krishna's words. Um, then that is a correct use of this doubt. But Prabhupada says that then now when you have Bhagavad Gita as it is, and Prabhupada is saying, okay, in the fourth chapter, uh, in his purport, he's saying, okay, now it's time to approach a bona fide spiritual master. So you've read Bhagavad Gita, so now go to the temple and begin to render service. And the traveling mendicants of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, they will come and they'll present and then hear what they have to say. So don't doubt this process of going to the temple and rendering service. But if you doubt it, then you'll miss out on the opportunity. I continue on the purport. As described in the Patanjali, Viparyaya Vikalpa Nitra Smritya. By intelligence, only one can understand things as they are. By intelligence, only one can understand whether or not he is the body. Study to determine whether one's identity is spiritual or material begins in. When one is able to analyze his actual position, the false identification with the body is detected. Viparyasa. Actually, Viparyasa. When false identification is detected, then real identification can be understood. Real understanding is described here as nishchayaha, proved experimental knowledge. This experimental knowledge can be achieved when one has understood the false knowledge. By experimental and that he is not the body, but spirit, soul. So, in applying this principle uh, to today's verse, So really, King Parikshit Maharaj, in asking for a direct explanation of this allegory, which Rukadev Goswami has given, is that the tendency of the mind is to create its own interpretations. So without a direct explanation, so many philosophers can come uh, with their own explanations. But what is the actual direct explanation as given by the speaker himself? So enter Srimad Bhagavatam, is that the direct explanation of the Vedanta Sutra is from the author himself, from Sukadev, from Vyasadeva himself. Um, if you don't actually take the Srimad Bhagavatam as a topmost means of understanding the Vedanta Sutra, then you'll get presented with all sorts of interpretations, so much so that you can actually commit offenses to the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, saying that he doesn't have senses, he doesn't have legs, he doesn't have arms. So that's really why it's needed, is that this false knowledge gets generated by different mental speculators. It's just something that's all the explanation is always required. Uh, okay, I continue. Last paragraph. Smriti means memory, and swapa means sleep. Sleep is also necessary to keep intelligence in working order. If there's no sleep, the brain cannot work nicely. In Bhagavad Gita, it is especially mentioned that persons who regulate eating, sleeping, and other necessities of the body and the become very successful in the yoga process. These are some of the aspects of the analytical study of intelligence, as described in the system and the Sankhya philosophy system of Kapila in Srimad Bhagavatam. Um, so yeah, so in the time of King Parikshit, society was well regulated. Um, there wasn't so much people, the free market of providing for basic commodities, food, shelter, construction materials, transportation. Um, it was constructed and regulated by the Kshatriyas in such a way that there wasn't so much of over endeavor. But you look at modern society now, um, a free market that's built on consumer credit has people just like working really hard, long hours, and as a result, and then also the exploitation of how people are being exploited by food. So, for example, in food processors, when they make a food, maybe a new energy soft drink or like a yogurt or whatever, there's something called the bliss point. This was discovered by one chemist in the 1970s when he designed this salt. And so you add in enough sugar just so that it keeps the person wanting to, taste another one. But if you add too much, then it's overwhelming. So, in other words, you add in enough sugar so that the dopamine release in the brain is just enough to keep the person wanting more. So that's really how foods are designed nowadays, to keep people wanting more. So eating late at night. So they're working long hours, they're eating late at night. And so the quality of their sleep is very low. So the insulin levels are spiked when they're sleeping. Um, so when your insulin levels are spiked and you try to go to sleep, it takes 4 hours insulin to calm down. And so you may feel like, okay, I got 6 hours of sleep or 8 hours from a duration perspective, but effectively you got whenever you slept. So if you slept at 10 and you woke up at 6, you only got, and you ate like at 9:30, you practically only got like 6.5 hours of sleep. And so their sleep, it affects the intelligence isn't in working order. And then such persons, they are giving the interpretations of different scriptures. They're giving the interpretations of what is the best course of action in different fields of activity. So, for example, our Kala Swarup Prabhu, he was telling us that when you would, he's a physicist, and when you would go to these conferences, so speculator you are, so whether you're a mathematician or you're a physicist, a certain alcohol that you prefer. So if you are, um, they prefer like beer or something like that. The physicists, they prefer the hard stuff, like the stronger spirits, etc. Um, Basically, what I'm saying is that the way people are eating and drinking, the liquids that they're putting in their bodies, affects, the neurochemistry. And so such persons are actually interpreting scriptures and presenting those as very knowledgeable. And so that's why King Parikshit Maharaj is asking souls such as Shukadev understand that you have to have good quality sleep in order to practice yoga. You have to be regulated in your eating, your sleeping, and other necessities of life in order even to recall the scriptures. Yeah. So that you can give a correct and direct interpretation. Prabhupada, yes, and the purport. So such allegorical descriptions may not be understood by unintelligent men. So unintelligent men, based on what we've described, are persons who aren't regulated in their sleeping. Their memory doesn't work well because they're not regulated in these basic necessities of their bodies. They accept false knowledge. They take their bodies to be they've accepted false identification. They're unable to detect that them as persons, they're separate from the body. Um, so they're unable to actually detect the real identity. They can't understand the real identification. And um, they doubt doesn't work. So basically, they doubt something, but then when they present, there's a tendency to even doubt that correct explanation. So yeah, so we can see that from here, um, a lot can go wrong in interpreting scripture. It's not that if you have big titles and you've come from, very old institutions such as Oxford or Cambridge or Harvard, that's like the guarantee that doubt, misapprehension, correct apprehension, memory, and sleep will just function correctly for a career of 30 to 50 years of mental speculation. Just doesn't guarantee it. But with great acharyas such as Prabhupada, Shugademi, the acharyas whose disappearance it is today, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, they have been doing this work of delivering souls, uh, interpreting scripture, presenting the direct meaning for a long time, not just for this lifetime that their presence is manifest, but from previous lifetime, because of logical identity in relation to Krishna. And so they don't get swayed by the three modes of material nature and basically contaminating the intelligence. And so their direct explanation is to be accepted as the explanation. So in philosophy, branch of philosophy is that deals with how do we know what we know. So the function of an acharya is necessary. A teacher in person is actually necessary because, as we've described, intelligence can be swayed. Its different functions can be swayed. So that's why I like the system of approaching the absolute truth that Krishna has established of having a parampara system with in-person gurus, not just the guru for thousands of years and then nobody else um, follows that personal example. So, for example, in Christianity, they accept Lord Jesus Christ as uh, well, depending on what school of thought you are, but basically he's the guru. And then other schools of other branches of Christianity accept him to be in any case, then those who are supposed to be his representative, um, they're not challenged to actually lead a pure life. Just have faith, and if you're a minister and you make mistakes, okay, so they're a little lack. But we
Tarka Prabhu?
Yes, sir.
I hope you never die. Otherwise, 50% of the Bhagavatam class audience will be gone.
That's very funny.
It's not just because of that, but I thought you should know.
Okay, Harbo Prabhu, sorry about that. Computer just went off. Okay, we're continuing reading about Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj. Sankirtan day and night, and therefore he visited there. This is Sri Manaketana Ramdas, that Sri Kaviraj is. In emotional love, he sat in my courtyard, and all the Vaishnavas bowed down at his feet. In a joyful mood of love of God, he sometimes climbed upon the shoulder of someone offering obeisances, and sometimes he struck others with his flute, while he slapped them. When someone saw the Anaketana Ramdas, tears would automatically flow from his own eyes, for a constant shower of tears flowed. Sometimes there were eruptions of ecstasy, like kadamba flowers, on some parts of his body, and sometimes one limb would be stunned, while another would be trembling. Whenever he shouted aloud the name Nityananda, the people around him were filled with great wonder, and one respectable Brahmana named Sri Gunarnava Misra was serving the deity. Yard. This Brahmana did not offer him respect. Seeing this, Sri Ramdas became angry and spoke, "Here I find the second Romaharshana Sutta, who did not stand to show honor when he saw Lord Balaram." After saying this, he danced and sang to his heart's content, but the Brahmana did not become angry, for he was then serving Lord Krishna. At the end of the festival, Minaketana, at that time, he had some controversy with my brother. My brother had firm faith in Lord Chaitanya, but only a dim glimmer of faith in Lord Nityananda. Knowing this, Sri Ramdas felt unhappy in his mind. I then rebuked my brother. "These two brothers," I told him, "they are identical manifestations. If you do not believe in Lord Nityananda, you will fall down. To respect the other, your logic is like the logic of accepting half a hen. It would be better to be an atheist by slighting both brothers than a hypocrite by believing in one and slighting the other." Unquote. Thus, Sri Ramdas broke his flute in anger and went away. And at that time, my brother fell down. That night, because he was pleased with the chastisement that Krishna ending his dear devotee, Minaketana Ramdas, Lord Nityananda appeared in his dreams and declared, "Hare Hare Krishna Das, na karaha baya, Vrindavana yaha anha sarva naryapaya." Oh, my dear friends, do not be afraid. Go to Vrindavan, for there you will attain all things. CC Adi 5. Receiving the mercy of Lord Nityananda in his dream, he started for Vrindavan with a joyful mind. The lotus feet of the spiritual master of Sri Kaviraj, none other than those of Lord Nityananda himself. He accepted the Goswamis, Sri Rupa, Sri Sanatana, Sri Jiva, Sri Raghunath, and Sri Raghunath Bhatta, and Sri Gopal Bhatta as his instructing spiritual masters. From Sri Lokanath Goswami, he begged permission to write Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Lokanath directed Sri Kaviraj that he desired to be unmentioned in his book. That is why in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, hardly a reference about Lokanath Goswami is to be found. Sri Krishna Kaviraj Goswami compiled the following books, still extant: Sri Govinda Lilamrita, Krishna Charan Gauranga Anda Ika, and of course Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. The author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, stands as the direct disciple of Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. While Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was Srila Narottam Das Thakur, who accepted Srila Savita. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur accepted Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, the spiritual master of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who in turn accepted Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, the spiritual master of Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, of our humble self, is Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So we can see in the life of Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj how he didn't fall into the trap of um, misapprehending the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. He was actually able to give the direct report to Lord Chaitanya's symptoms of ecstasy, um, Lord Chaitanya's direct pastimes with these different devotees. Because at the time, there's like, I've heard from my Guru Maharaj speaking on some of the history during when Lord Chaitanya was around the 1500s. And at the time, they actually know when the British went to India and how they interpreted Lord Chaitanya's pastimes is that they saw one who came to, he started out as one who, spoke truth to power to the Muslims and and the caste Brahmanas, and wanted to give everybody an equal opportunity to basically participate in a free India. But then when it came to the later pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, they interpreted as a reformer, and he was just in ecstasy. His behavior, it seemed like, basically, if a psychological, psychiatric analysis had to be done on Lord Chaitanya's behavior, they would see it as some kind of illness that Lord Chaitanya had actually. But that's the misinterpretation of Lord Chaitanya's Goswami being in parampara, having a lifestyle to keep his intelligence intact, having full devotional service to the parampara, was actually able to give the correct explanation of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. And in this way, thousands of souls, uh, many hundreds of years later, are able to benefit and see that, yes, Lord Chaitanya, the Sri Krishna himself, coming as his own devotee, showing the highest ecstasy of Mahabhav. Very few persons are able to actually access explanations of the highest ecstasy in the spiritual world. But Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj was able to give such explanation. So, dear devotees, we are ran out of time, but today being a very auspicious day, there's plenty of nectar to be had. So please let your intelligence swim in pastimes of Srila Raghunath Bhatt Goswami as well, who is, it's also his disappearance day, and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami as well. I don't have time to read about them, but there's plenty of nectar available today. Hare Krishna. Maharaj, would you like to add anything? It's okay. Okay. So I've received blessings from His Holiness Krishna Chaitra Maharaj. Anything from our devotees online?
Hare Krishna
Yes.
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you very much for a nice class. I am delighted that you took some time to glorify our previous acharyas, Srila Raghunath Bhatta Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami and Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur. Very nice to hear about them. This verse, very important principle, of course, to hear from the spiritual master. Krishna, of course, cannot be approached directly. He has to be approached through his devotee. I'm reminded of a prayer that appears in the 6th canto. Vitrasura is speaking to Indra, I believe. It says, this is the 11th chapter, text 24. He says, Aham Hare Tava Hadaika Dasanu Daso Babitasmi Bhuya Mana Smare Tasu Pater Gunumste Kanita Vak Karma Karotu Kayaha. Says, oh my Lord, oh Supreme Personality of Godhead, may I again be able to be a servant of your eternal servants who find shelter only at your lotus feet. O Lord of my life, may I again become their servant so that my mind may always think of your transcendental attributes, my words always glorify those attributes, and my body always engage in the loving service of your lordship. Srila Prabhupada says in his purport that this verse gives the sum and substance of devotional life. He says one must first become a servant of the servants of the Lord. Dasa Nudasa. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised, and he also showed by his own example, that a living entity should always desire to be a servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, the maintainer of the gopis. Gopi, Bhartu, Pada, Kamalayor, Dasa, Dasa, Dasa. This means that one must accept a spiritual master who comes in the disciplic succession and is a servant of the Lord. Under his direction, one must then engage in three properties, namely, one must then engage one's three properties, namely his body, mind, and words. The body should be engaged in physical activity under the order of the spiritual master. The mind should think of Krishna incessantly, and one's words should be engaged in preaching the glories of the Lord. If one is thus engaged in the service of the Lord, one's life is successful. So, sum and substance of devotional life begins with taking shelter of the Lord's devotees. And I suppose I could go on at length in this vein. There are countless quotations in Shastra and from Srila Prabhupada that support the important principle of understanding Krishna in disciplic succession, the importance of accepting a spiritual master and understanding Krishna as he is presented by the spiritual master, rather than trying to understand independently. But we are short of time. And so I will thank you again for your nice class, and I'll shut up and go away. Hare Krishna Prabhu. You are muted.
Thank you, Prabhu, for your kind words of. Yes, let's conclude here. Rantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gopanande Haribol.